low cards, or obviously an ace and one of your low cards, it's really not a situation you want to be in. With spades out there, none of my diamonds, and that, I'm honestly folding two pair on this flop. I realize that I'm probably ahead at this stage for the high, but I might not even be ahead to somebody who's banked to set or something on that either. And it just, with the way that my equity tanked on the low draw there, I'm just not really going to be, I'm not going to be happy with the result of putting money into the pot in that hand very often, I don't think, after the flop. 8-9 Jack Queen, obviously, or a Jack King, obviously is not a hand that we're thrilled with in an Omaha high-low context. We're going to get rid of that. The three hearts, we've talked about before, how three of the same suit is not a friendly thing in Omaha. We do, of course, have lots of wrap straight possibilities going on up there with the 8-9 Jack King. Any sorts of, Queen 10, 7, King, Ace combinations are friendly for us, bringing us more equity. But we come back to the point that I harp on again and again and again. There's no low. There's no low possibility at all, and that means that you're throwing away half the hand even before you start. So why are you even bothering to play if you're going to do that? If you come away from this series learning one thing, ladies and gentlemen, it is that when you're playing high-low games and you do not have the possibility of making a low hand, do not play your hand. There are very, very, very occasional situation-specific exceptions to that rule, as there always are in every form of poker with every rule that forms of poker have. There are always situation-specific exceptions to those rules. But when you're playing a high-low game, if you make a habit of accepting the rule, accepting, not accepting, accepting, if you make a habit of breaking the rule that says you should always have a low hand possibility, you will not win very many high-low tournaments. That is my prediction. I may not be a $1 million high-low tournament winner, but my prediction is that if you do not play for low hands on the majority of the times that you're in the pot, you will not win many high-low tournaments. If you bring a strictly high strategy from stud into stud 8 or from Omaha into 08, you will not do very well employing just that high strategy. You must have some sort of an adjustment to the low game portion of that in order to be successful when you move. Conversely, if you're somebody that plays high-low a lot, you have to make the adjustment when you go to the high versions of those games like a stud or a PLO or FLO. You have to go to the adjustment and remember that when you see those pretty looking hands like ace, deuce, 3, 4 rainbow, you no longer want to play them in the strictly high-low version of the game. Although maybe ace, 2, 3, 4 you might play for the straight possibilities for the wheel draws down there. But your 7-6 ace deuce, you're probably not going to play nearly as often in the high format as you're going to play in the low format or the high-low format. Of course, the whole point of this series is that you can find HoldEm coverage and very good HoldEm coverage in many other spots. Here on Twitch, Jay Carver Poker does a phenomenal HoldEm streaming. The best HoldEm streaming in the world going on right now is being done by Jason Somerville over at Jay Carver Poker here on Twitch. So check him out if you're looking for good HoldEm coverage. There's a ton of that being done, which is great HoldEm coverage by really smart people with really good HoldEm skills that are giving really good information out in a really entertaining way. Very few of those things would apply to me, in fact. I'm not a very good HoldEm player. I might be a reasonably smart person. I don't know about that, but I'm not a very good HoldEm player. I wouldn't say I'm a passable HoldEm player. The thing is, though, when I look around the poker streaming universe, I don't see a lot of people who are showing off any of the other wide and varied games that poker has to offer, and that's what I want to do here on Anything But Hold'em. I also want to focus on the hands that I'm playing, and I don't want to get rid of that. We've been shoved on by Kof Boy here, and with our low draws, I don't really think that we can get rid of this. We've come into the pot. It's only 8:48 to come in. I really think that we've got to play. He's got no low. So when we get the low, we're loving life. He's gonna take half the pot on his high, but there was every chance that we scoop that pot because we're playing for low and he's not, folks. That is a key point. Right there is an illustration of what I'm talking about. He threw away half the pot to me right off the start. He said, "You know what? If a low draw comes up, you can take all that money away from me. I don't care. I don't care about it whatsoever." And he got lucky that he hit a high draw that was better than mine, but what he hit was tens and fives, and I could easily have hit a better high hand by the end of by the time the river came down than he did, and scooped that entire pot from him. It was very unlikely that he was ever going to scoop that entire pot from me, because the only way that he's ever able to scoop that entire pot from me is if the board comes down in such a way that no low hand is possible. Any low hand that comes out, I take half the pot on. So that's why it's so important to play for your low hands. Even when you have nothing that really looks like a reasonable high hand, you should be playing for your low hands, because your high hands can just suddenly appear out of nowhere. And then you scoop pots. But otherwise, you're still in there for half the pot. And if you're in there for half the pot, that's not a terrible thing. I said it was a terrible thing before when you give up half the pot to everybody, and that's true. If you're only ever in for half the pot, it's a bad thing. But if you're in for half the pot with a chance to bank all of it, hey, go for that, man. You go for that shit. And the way that you get in for half the pot with a chance to bank some of it. Yes, Stuckhammer, it is 08 tonight. We are in the Micro Millions 059. Which is a $3.30 fixed limit Omaha high-low, or as I like to call it, FLO8. It was a 5K guarantee tournament, which we literally crushed at a prize pool of $13,818 with a total number of entrants of 4,606. We're 3 hours and 38 minutes in. 585 people are going to cash today. And first place is going to take home $2,172.70. Our min cash is going to come in at $5.38. There's currently 916 people left in the tournament, so we are just over 300 people away from our cashing status. Our position at the moment is reasonably comfortable at 448th overall. A stack of 21,000 at this stage is a pretty happy place to be. We're obviously not thrilled. We're not jumping up and down. The only time that we're doing that is if we've got a top 10 or a top 20 chip stack at this point, which right now is a top 10 chip stack is anything above 74,000, and a top 20 stack is anything above 69,000. So we're a ways off of that sort of lofty territory, but having a 21,000 chip stack at this point is perfectly playable. There's no reason that we need to be panicked about anything. We are well in the cashing zone. There's like 300 people to go until we're in the cash, and people are starting to collect little bits of paper and coinage from the cage, the virtual cage in this case, but from the cage nonetheless. So there's no reason to panic. There's no reason to get crazy. There's no reason to either play super passively to try to make it into the money, or to go crazy and play super aggressive to accumulate chips. We don't need to do either of those things. We need to just play the hands that come to us, and otherwise be pretty cool and just sit back. Yeah, Jason's Run It Up show is amazing. He is the gold standard, I think, of poker streaming at the moment, especially in the Hold'em range, and I would recommend anybody who's looking for Hold'em coverage to go over and watch Jay Carver Poker for absolute certain. He is the guy. I think. And yes, I think you're right on that one. He was basically most of his chips in with the blind. So yeah, I wasn't really criticizing his play of getting it in there with no low hand, but what I'm saying is that he's throwing away the pot there, and even with most of his chips in on the big blind, you might actually be more profitable to wait and get all of your chips in on the big blind, or get all of your chips in on the small blind with a hand that at least has a chance to draw out to a low. But that said, it's not a huge problem when you've got that few chips. You don't have a ton of options, so you're going to do what you're going to do, and that's the cards are going to come the way the cards are going to come, and that's all you can do. So I wasn't really criticizing his play, really, but I was just sort of highlighting the point that I like to make about how you want to play with the low hand as your primary focus. To be able to have the chance to scoop the pot, because he was never playing for anything other than half the pot there, if a low hand comes. I'm pretty sure that I have never played '08 cash in my life. I mentioned earlier that I'm not going to play a ton of cash on this stream either. This is going to be mostly tournament focused as well. I will probably play a little bit of cash, but the cash games that I tend to play are Stud 8, Badoogie, and Raz cash are the three that I tend to play the most of. Um, so we'll see how things go on this one. I'm still pretty happy. We're down to 871, which means we are less than 300 to go until we're in the cash phase. Till that step has gone past us in our journey to being the person sitting at the end of the tournament with all the chips in front of us. Um, and just kind of a reminder of what I'm talking about when I say it's a journey along the path. Um, Obviously, the place that we're trying to get to on this little poker walk that we're taking today is to be the person at the end of the tournament sitting with this big, massive stack of chips in front of us and nobody else having any chips anymore. That's obviously always the destination on any poker walk that we take. Um, but along the way of getting to that destination on our poker walk, there's lots of places that we need to pass before we're ever going to be that person sitting at the final table with all the chips at the end of the day. One of those places is that we need to cash in the tournament. If we don't cash in the tournament, we're never going to be sitting at the end with all the chips. That's just a fundamental truth about poker. You have to first cash before you can win the thing. So no, getting a min cash is not a goal of mine. But I think it's important to recognize that in order to get to the goal of winning the tournament, you need to be at a stage where you might min cash. Because if you never get to a stage where you might min cash, you're not going to be cashing at the end of the tournament. You're going to have busted out long before that, and you're not going to be doing very well. So please don't get me wrong when you hear me talking about looking forward to the min cash, or I'm getting into the min cash, or whatever. That's not my goal. That's never my goal. My goal is to win. It's always to win the tournament. But what I've realized in tournament poker is that tournament poker is not a single goal. Playing tournament poker is a long walking journey. When you're playing live, it's a 7-day journey where you have to stop and get a hotel room 6 times along the way. I mean, it's a long slog of a walk, and along that journey, there are signposts that you need to pass. So that if you don't pass those signposts, you're never going to get to the place that you want to be at the end of the tournament. So they're not my goals. They're never my goals, and don't take them to be my goals. But they are the things that I know need to happen before I'm going to get to the goal that I know is ultimately what I want to do. So that's how I think about tournament poker. It's a walk. It's a poker walk that we're going, that starts when we sit down and buy in and put our starting stack down on the table, and it doesn't end until we walk out of the poker room for the final time. And whether, where we walk out, I think understanding that it's a journey that you have to go through, not simply a destination that you're looking at, is key to walking out more often with money in your pocket than you walk out without money in your pocket. At least in my opinion, anyways. You're saying understood, which means I'm thinking that you're talking about the concept that I just spent the next 3 minutes being verbose about. So cool that you understand. That's wonderful. We'll get back to talking about some of the hands here. Queen Queen Four Deuce is certainly a hand you can play in a high-low format. You've got the Four Deuce for low. You've got the Queen Queen for your high hand. But I've talked about these before in an Omaha format. Because of the way Omaha plays, where you can only play 2 cards out of your hand and you have to play 3 off the board, when you're looking at this Queen Queen Four Deuce hand, as the flop and the turn and the river move forwards, if you start improving into a really good low hand, your high hand is less likely to be improving. And if you're improving into a really good high hand, well, that's taking cards away from you being able to make a low hand on it. So it's not really the best way to play. Now, it's a little bit better in an 08 situation than it would be in like a stud 8 situation, for example, because in the stud 8, you're dealing with your own board, and therefore every time that you get one that helps your high hand, it kills your low hand. The fact that you only need 3 low cards on the board to make your low hand in 08 means that it's slightly less of a detriment there, but it's still never a really good bet to go with something like a high pair and 2 low cards as your high-low split hand in a game like 08. At least not in my mind. Yeah, Raz is pretty easy, I think, in general. It's probably one of the easiest poker games to learn. Obviously, the finer points of where you can use your board to bully people off pots and things like that are a little bit more complex in Raz, and they take a little bit longer to work out. But yeah, the basic structure of the game, we could play with 3-5-6 all being low and having good straight possibilities here. The king's going to be a throwaway card in this situation, most likely, although we could pair a king for a high hand in this case. Let's call through and see what happens. There's really no... We probably should have raised there, in fact, although we're almost certain he's going to call the rest of his chips off anyways. We certainly don't want to give him a free turn, so we're going to bet this almost no matter what has come up, simply because we don't want to give him a free turn. There's no excuse for him not to put the rest of his chips in the pot, no matter what his cards are here, even if he's got almost 0 equity, just because he's got 0 equity with his chip stack anyways. And splitting that pot is a pretty reasonable result. Deuce 4-5 queen, we can definitely play those. That's an excellent point, Thukamer. That is the biggest pay jump from 0 to min cash. It's huge, right? Until you get to the final table, for sure. That is just a massive ROI jump. Even though we only think of it oftentimes as being 70% plus on our buy-in. It's actually a massive jump from 0 to that number. In our case today, I think $5.35, I think it was. No, $5.38. So from 0 to $5.38 is a massive jump, and it's worth talking about for sure. Cool. Yeah, we're three minutes behind, so you are there is going to be a bit of a delay. It's one of the reasons why I put up the chat window on the stream as well, so that it's easier for people watching to keep track of when I am seeing the comments that you're making in the chat window. So that kind of helps things out. Getting back to the Raz point, I agree, because learning the basic structure, not only of what your good Raz hand is going to be, but then being able to look at the other people's boards and say, right, I am better than him, there's no question, or I am worse than him, there's no question, is a fairly easy skill that you master pretty quickly in Raz as well if you're paying attention too. So it's pretty easy to even get to the second level of Raz play. There are deeper levels of Raz play where it gets a little bit more complex than that, but at the end of the day, I agree with you. Raz is probably the easiest variant of poker out there. It's certainly the one where you have the most information available to you on what your opponent is doing, I think. Coming up on the break now, so we're coming up on 4 hours of play at this point. As I said before, I don't usually use breaks to as my stepping stones in the tournaments, just because they're ignorant of the tournament structure and the poker environment that you're playing in. They're simply slaves to the clock, and that doesn't really do anything for setting a poker goal. But nonetheless, it does let me go use the bathroom, which is always a useful thing to do in the middle of a poker tournament sometimes. So right as we come up to this break, there's 753 people left, which means we're under 200 to go till we're in the money. We are sitting 454th, so we're still absolutely comfortable. We have no reason to panic. We have no reason to either play super passive or play super aggressive. At this point in time, we should just play a pretty straightforward game of Omaha 8, which when you're dealt ace deuce 3-4 with one suit, you like your chances very much, and you're going to put money into the pot. And when you've got somebody who's on a small stack, like I am not myself, up there raising into this, you're putting as many chips into the pot as you can with this hand. This is one where if we were in a no limit scenario, I would be saying to the dealer, please take all my chips, put them in the middle, and make this other person match that bet. You'd be surprised, actually, at the ways you can bully people off pots. And when I say bullying people off pots, I mean when I have an ace 3-5 showing and you have an ace king queen and I'm betting, the fact that I have a king king down doesn't matter to you, because you are now looking at a hand that's not likely to draw out to anything valuable. Well, that bites. That's a really bitey way for that hand to have worked out, because we had such a massive looking both high and low end draws going into that pre-flop, and he had no low draw whatsoever. So for us to brick our low completely on that and have him hit his highs was just a really brutal way for that hand to play out, frankly. Yep, good getting used to the staggered combo. It's usually only going to take 3.5 minutes to come through, and it's actually not that. I'm finding it's not that weird. It's a little weird, but I do it when I'm over in the chat on Jay Carver, and it's not that strange to sit. And I mean, with him, it's even longer than that, because he's got so many messages that he's usually 10 or 12 minutes behind the actual chat messages that they come in, because there's just hundreds of them coming in at a time. Which I don't have fortunately, I don't have that problem yet, unfortunately, but hopefully eventually I will. Well, now that we're sitting at 16,000 chips, we're slightly lower than we were before, obviously. We're still in cash position, 530th at this point, with 585 people cashing, and I still have no reason to panic in any sense. There's no reason to either get over aggressive or get over passive to try to squeeze into the money or anything like that. We're just going to keep playing our hands the way that we want to, and I think we've got a reasonable chance. I see no reason why we shouldn't cash this tournament at this point. I know it's probably jinxing myself to say that at this point, but I see no reason, unless we get coolered in some situation, why why I shouldn't cash. It should be pretty easy for me to cash at this point. So, alrighty, I'm gonna go off and do my custodial duties, and I will be back after the break. Later. Alrighty, we are back with anything but Hold'em, playing our Micro Millions 059 $3.30 fixed limit Omaha high low. Putting the tournament lobby up on the screen now for a couple of minutes. We can have a look at what's going on. There's 500. I'm 527th with 722 remaining. So we're looking at about 150 people, 140 people left to go until we're in the min cash zone. So we're still pretty comfortable, I think, with where we are. It was obviously kind of brutal to get hammered on that pot that we were in because I have so much equity pre-flop, and just have it all disappear as the board runs out is just always brutal. But that is Omaha, folks. It's going to happen from time to time. tournament strategy said we needed to put I'm Not Myself all in because of his stack size. We needed to force his hand there, and we actually were in against him with a huge amounts of equity pre-flop when he's in there with no low hand at all. And the fact that we bricked out on that is just brutally bad luck, really, I've got to say. Yeah, I agree. Jason's chat is hard to work with. There's lots of times that I put comments in chat that just never get seen, I'm sure. So this chat, I mean, I really want to be as responsive to people that come and watch as I can. So it's obviously easy when there's not that many people coming to watch, but I'm going to try to keep it up as much as I can. In Jason's defense, when you've got 5,000 people coming to watch your stream, it's pretty hard to keep up on. It's pretty hard to keep up on chat. Yeah, Bink Bell. That's a good point. I think I probably need one of those. Although I might get copyright problems if I got a Bink Bell, so I might need to get like an air horn or something like that. My neighbors would love that if I got an air horn, wouldn't they? That would be just. I live in a condo, so my neighbors would just love that. Alrighty, well, let's take. We're back. We got cards again, so let's take our tournament lobby off the window, off the screen again. You've had a chance to have a quick look at it now. This is one of those hands that's just a steaming pile of dog poo when you're talking about Omaha high-low. You've obviously got the high possibilities there with all sorts of Broadway draws and big pair draws and things like that. But with no low, as I keep harping on, you're not, you're throwing away half the pot before you even start the hand. Looks like Titan 960 hasn't gotten back from his P break yet. I don't usually get too upset at the end of breaks when people time out like this, because I know it happens to me once in a while when I'm making a sandwich or whatever. Alrighty, so let's go. Yeah, it is pretty juicy, I think. Started at 11 o'clock my time, so we've been running over 4 hours now. We just capped the 4 hour mark. It certainly hasn't, I wouldn't say, been a hugely high level of play by anyone. I'm including myself in that category as well for this. But I mean, yeah, I think it's certainly a fairly juicy tournament. It hasn't been hugely difficult for me to get to where I am now, where I'm fairly confident in the fact that I'm going to cash this as time goes on. I should really stop saying that, because I know it's jinxing me in a poker context. The poker gods hate it when you say things like that before they actually happen, but it certainly looks that way. And especially in the limit context, it's much harder for you to suddenly realize that shit's gone all wrong and that you're out of the tournament. Like in a no-limit context, that can happen in the blink of an eye. It's much harder, and it takes more effort on your part to put yourself in that situation in a limit context when you have a stack like I've got at this point. So if I manage to bust before the money at this stage, it will have been because I did something. It will be either be because I did something that looked good pre-flop and just went horribly wrong afterwards, like happened with that ace deuce 3-4. But that being said, I'm very unlikely to have done that against somebody with a chip stack that could cripple me. The reason that I played it that way was because I am not myself had such a small chip stack, and I was basically playing to bust him. Was the idea. So yeah, I mean that was a very situation specific thing. But it's not like I'm in danger of going out if I get a couple of bets into a pot. And it's not like I'm in danger of blinding out if I don't play for a couple of orbits. Either on both of those sides, I'm in fairly good. I'm fairly comfortable in what I'm doing. One of the quirks of the fixed limit Omaha 8 game that we're seeing here is that there's no antes at all. We're 4 hours in. We're still not paying antes. There will be no antes, I'm sure, for the whole tournament. That's just the way fixed limit 08 works. That's just the way fixed limit Omaha works. We will never have any antes, and what that means is you can actually sit around and wait for cards a lot longer than you could in a game that has antes, where you're putting money in on every single hand that you play. Here, I'm only putting money in 2 hands around the table. Now, that's only partially true because they actually jigger that money back out of you by making the bet structures bigger in fixed limit games than they would be in no limit games at this stage. But it still is something where you can sit for like 7 hands and not have put a single chip in the pot. Yes, that picture on the top right is a picture of me playing a live tournament in Nottingham, UK at the Dusk Till Dawn Casino. There's a British poker player by the name of Neil Channing who used to run a site called Black Belt Poker. It is now defunct. He closed it down last year. But he ran it for 6 or 7 years, at least, I think, and actually quite successfully. And I've hadn't really played a ton on the site, but I've always followed him through and followed Neil Channing and quite enjoyed his stuff. So when I happened to be over in the UK at the same time that one of his live tournaments was running, I figured, what the hell, I'll throw in my $200 and play the Knots live. And I had a chance to meet him. This picture was taken while I was playing at one of the tables. I'm obviously the bald guy in the middle, not the guy who's poking his head in off the right hand side. But I think that's pretty clear. And so yeah, it was a fun time, and that's where that picture comes from. That is me playing. Actually, ironically enough, that's me playing No Limit Hold'em. But it's hard to find a live picture of somebody playing a game other than No Limit Hold'em, because it's hard to find any live poker that's not No Limit Hold'em or Pot Limit Omaha. Alrighty, we have got one of those hands that we like a lot, but that said, we are playing into somebody who has a very large stack and can hurt us a lot before we get to the cashing stage. So we're going to be somewhat cautious about this. Now, this is also one of those hands where our queen high, when we improve it, it does not help our ace 3 low in any way, straight or anything. So that's not the best situation to be in, but with any luck, we can bet this flop and get a fold and happily go through. Well, that's not going to happen. I'm hoping that he hasn't hit the king. I'm still pretty happy with my low draw. I've also just backed into a club draw on the turn, so I'm still pretty happy. I don't think I need to put money into this pot at this point, though. I can save myself a bet. Yes, it would make the pot up big if I put it in and he calls it, but it also tends to cripple me. So we bricked out on our low. Unless he's banked the king, we're still good on our high, I think. He could very well have banked the king, and probably has. He could also have banked the 4, in which case he's ahead of us. With his stack, he could be trying to push us off of a hand, though, with something as weak as an ace high, I think, or even just total air. This is probably, by an 08 specialist, going to be called a bad call, but I'm going to make it anyways. Yeah, the king. Oh, 4 is full of kings, even worse. It's another one of those unfortunate situations where we really should have gotten half the pot out of a low on that, but, you know, that's the way it goes. That was slightly weaker than the one we played before. Obviously, we've still got the ace-3, but we don't have the pair up top. We've only got the king-queen to hit, so... Yeah, it's always nice to get a walk sometimes, but we go. Yeah, I sort of know Neil personally now, sort of. I mean, we had a beer and dinner that night that I was playing at the tournament, and I've emailed with him a couple of times now. I wouldn't say that we're friends by any stretch of the imagination, but we're certainly acquaintances now, and well, I chat with him and he chats back from time to time. I don't think he's ever sought me out directly, but yeah. Alrighty, now that we're down to 8,000 chips, we're going to play a little bit more cautiously. I'm still not particularly worried about life at this point. We've still got a couple of orbits left before we blind out. And we've still got people below us who are going to want to, or people who are slightly above us who are going to want to put their chips in and go crazy. Yep, picture was taken in the UK at Dusk Till Dawn Casino in Nottingham. A lovely room, actually. It's one of the best poker rooms I've ever played in. I love the atmosphere. The people there are good. Rob Young's an awesome guy, and Simon Trumper has always got his smiling face and bald head there at the door when you walk in. It's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome room. Ace Deuce with our diamonds, with our nut diamond draw, I think is a hand that we probably are going to want to get involved with, even though, I mean, at this point we can probably, this is a really tough spot to be in. We can probably fold through to very close to being a cash position. But if we can pull half of the pot down with this, I guess we decided to wait too long and it folded out on us. I thought we would have a bit of a countdown to go with that, but I guess it decided not to. Probably folding out is, in terms of my equity in the tournament, i.e. my chances of getting to the min cash, as probably folding is slightly higher than playing this hand at this stage. But only slightly. Clearly, the equity of doubling my stack is huge at this point. It puts me safely back into the zone where I've got no worries, and I just wait for us to get around into cash zone. But equally, with the stack that I'm in now, if I play that, these people are going to put me in. Oh, the clubs came in. That was kind of a wicked little bit to get another person out of the tournament and drop us down a bit. See, by folding there, if we look up now at my position, I'm 581st out of 641. Now that's obviously going to change when the blinds come around and I get nailed with the blind. But I'm actually back in cashing position again with something in the neighborhood of 60 people to go till the cash. So I'm not in a horrible situation. How would you have played the Ace Queen Queen hand? Through camera? I'm always curious to hear how other people would play these hands. FLO8 is not really the one that is not really one of the games that I would say that I'm super good at. I'm fairly confident with my high-low game in all the high-low variants, but the PLO is probably the one that I'm the least comfortable with. So getting other perspectives on the way hands go. Yeah, I'm a little worried at 8K. 8K is something where I need to really do some stack management to make sure that I get through. People are dropping pretty quick. We are now basically 50 away from our cash status. Yes, we are 50 away from the cash status now. We are in the zone for caching. We are 574th out of 632 with 585 caching. So I'm not hugely terrified at this point and thinking, oh my god, I need to get my stack in so that I'll just barely cash. I'm actually still thinking that I've got a good chance of cashing without having to do anything with this tournament, which is a nice option to be able to think of in the back of your head if you're not getting dealt any cards. Thank you for the good luck with the Ace-2 8 Jack, but it yeah, I should have just got it in. You're right, I think. And I probably should have got this one in as well with the Ace Deuce Deuce 6. But being so early in position, again, I'm just worried about. I think I'm being overly nitty at this point, trying to get into the cash. You're right. I should have just got the Ace Deuce 8 Jack in, I think. I think if the time bank had kicked in on that hand, I probably would have eventually gotten around to just getting it in. But the fact that I didn't actually seems to have given me a chance to potentially slide into the money as well. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens that way. And when you didn't like the me tanking on that one, you're going to hate it when you get to the ace deuce deuce 6 hand, because that one was pretty crappy, pretty nitty fold for me as well. So this is the place where I start to lose my position in the money, I think. But we're 35 people away from cashing now, and I won't be that far off of the cash status, I don't think. So it's not that bad of a situation still. I don't really have any low pot equity here. Honestly think that even though that the odds are so nice and the pot is so big, I think putting any chips in here is just burning money and burning my chances at actually min cashing this thing. So I'm gonna fold there. Obviously, the queens are a fairly strong high hand, or they were, but before we saw a flop and a turn. But I think that I still want to get in. Yeah, I can certainly see that working, and I probably should have folded the river, I think, but yeah, it's probably I certainly like the way you're thinking about it. I see you're watching. I've got the stream up in the background as well without the sound on, so I see you're watching the hand that you're going to get upset about now as well, since you got upset about the Ace Deuce Eight Jack. That's another one that we probably play with a bigger stack in a different spot in the tournament. Obviously, the 5, 6, 7, the three suits are never friendly in Omaha, but the 5, 6, 7, the pair of sevens, you got lots of ways that hand comes out nicely for you. You know, you get trip sevens, and you're still using that seven with your 6, 5 for a low hand, and all that is just nice. So I know exactly what Jay Carver would say. Jay Carver would say, "I am a fucking nit bitch." That is, I think, the exact phrasing that would come out of Jay Carver's mouth. You are a fucking nit bitch for folding those hands. I am pretty sure I have quoted him exactly, and I don't think that he would be upset at me misquoting him by saying that. 6-4 King 9, that's a fold out. Right, so we've gone to 588 after the blinds have come around. There's 605 people left, so 588th, we're still basically in cashing position at this point, and as we play hands out, other people that are in 587th and 86th are going to get hit by the blinds and drop down below me, and I'm going to move up. And there we are right now. I'm 584th out of 602 now. So I'm back in the cashing position. We have got less than 20 people to go until we're in the money. And I think we're still in pretty good shape. I'm not nearly obviously in as good a shape as if I hadn't lost that one pot, but poker is about losing pots sometimes. It's going to happen, and sometimes those hands are just going to go against you. The board is going to come out wrong for you, or whatever. Doesn't necessarily mean you made the wrong decision. It just means it didn't work out for you that time. It's one of the big differences between poker and a sport like, say, golf. When Tiger Woods drops his ball down on the fairway and goes to tee off, if he does everything exactly right, he is going to par the hole an exceptionally high percentage of the time, and he's going to birdie the hole a very high percentage of the time if he's doing everything exactly perfectly. Compare that to Phil Ivey on the poker table. When he does everything exactly perfectly, he's thrilled if he's getting like a 35 or a 40% completion rate from making those perfect decisions. So it's a completely different game and result set that you can expect from being a good poker player versus being a good golfer or versus being a good tennis player or whatever. They are similar in the sense that they both require skill, but they're different in the sense that when you apply the skill in an expert manner, it does not always work out well for you in poker, and it does in the other games usually. Yeah, I think the queen 10-8 in the big blind. I mean, I think you have to fold there when you're losing half the hand anyways. Of course, especially after it came out, at that point it was obviously a good fold. That's being results oriented, but still. $595 remaining in the tournament now. I'm 575th. We have 585 cashing, so we're 10 away from the cash. I would say that it's almost certain that the bubble bursts before the big blind gets around to me at this stage. And this is one of those situations where I'm probably going to act slowly regardless of what I have in my hand, just because the more people that bust at this point, the farther up I go, and the more likely I am to get into the min cash. Not the best tournament strategy in the world necessarily, but it's something that occasionally can be useful for you. You're given the time, and you can use it to make hard decisions, which you have to do sometimes, but you can also use it for other purposes, and there's nothing in the rules that stop you from doing that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that I got that exact quote right out of his mouth. 592 left, so we're getting close to the bubble. 591 left. 590 left. 5 people to go until we are in the money. 4 people to go until we're in the money. 589 now. This hand is not very good anyways, but we would be folding it regardless because we're fairly certain that we can fold our way into the money at this stage, and then at that point we start getting our chips in with low equity hands or whatever we can, just to see if we can get some more chips into our pile. But until then, we are going to time bank just a little bit, and we're going to employ a strategy that's not the most friendly strategy in the world and can be annoying to other people at the table, but that there's no reason for anybody else at the table to not think that we are doing that for perfectly legitimate reasons, even if they consider time banking to be illegitimate in to wait for the bubble to burst. With a stack of 4,000, I am obviously making decisions for my life every time I decide whether I'm going to play or not, so taking a few seconds to do that is not going to be something that I think is a problem. We are on the bubble, ladies and gentlemen. We are down to 586 people. So we are on the bubble. We have a smallest stack of 0, which means somebody out there in tableland has busted. So we are actually now in the money. Officially in the money. We have officially min cashed, which means at this point, pretty much at any opportunity with the slightest bit of equity in my hand, I am trying to put as many chips as I can into the pot so that I can double up. I have no stack equity at this point whatsoever. My stack is worth virtually nothing in terms of the general tournament at this point, and the only way to change that is to throw it all in the middle and try to double it up or triple it up or quadruple it up. So that has instantly become the strategy once the bubble bursts, that we now need to be basically any hint of equity in our hand, and those chips need to be flying towards the center of the table. Yeah, I think in the general scheme of things, if you're playing poker for a while, you're going to lose pots. So if you're going to think less of people for losing a pot, that's it's probably going to be a lot of people that get thought less of. So I appreciate that. Alrighty, I'm saying that I'm going to be shoving my chips with any hand that even has a whiff of equity to it. Deuce 3 6 Queen. The Queen's a throwaway card, but the Deuce 3 6 with 2 diamonds has way more than a whiff of equity to it. This has got crap loads of high-low Omaha equity. So we are saying, dealer, please take all my chips and put them in the middle, and tell everybody else that they need to put that many chips in to keep playing. Now, that many chips is not very much, but it still is. This is the spot where I need to put my chips in the middle. I think that there's going to be Titans obviously thinking very much the same thing that I have been thinking in this. That he, Titan and well, Koph's in a slightly better position, but I mean Titan when the blinds come around is going to be pretty crippled after that. So. And we managed to squeeze out a split on low. And I think again, we've got so much equity in this, we just got no choice but to throw all our chips in the middle and say, anybody who wants to play can play for this many chips, and we will see what happens when all the cards are dealt out in the middle. Be curious to see what I'm up against with these guys. Of course, I won't see it now until the end of the hand because we got more than one person calling me. But I mean, obviously, I don't have much of a stack, so these guys could be in for any with a lot of things, and probably trying to make sure that they steal Koph's blinds here. I think is one of the key points for both of these people to be in. They've got the big stack, so they don't really care about throwing an extra bet in at this point. Strategically, to knock 2 people out, they're going to speculate a lot, I think, in this case. So I don't really see any reason for them to be huge. If it was a case, NC is obviously the one that's got the most likelihood of having a big hand. If when it goes raise call. Boggs almost always speculating at that point. If Boggs got a hand, it's going to go raise probably. Bog might be thinking strategically and also looking to want to knock 2 people out, and so therefore calling behind with big hand that way. But again, I think you're still going to want to get as many chips as you can into the pot and hope that NC gets into a raising war with you if you've got a massive pot. 8-5 flops 2 pairs. We've discussed before, flopping 2 pair in Omaha 8 is not your happiest situation always, especially not when they're makeup hands they're cards that you might have used for your low. That said, we've got other cards to use for low, and they're not horrible ones. So we might actually split. Potential we could scoop this, but we might actually split this one potentially. It's not likely, but yeah, we're out. Still, I mean, it was a pretty good run, I think. Had a couple of spots where we had some pretty bad luck. We didn't min cash. We actually got to the second tier, which is 552. So it was one better than a min cash. It's obviously not the result that we were looking for. That, as I've always said, is to win the tournament. But it's not a horrible day. We walked away from the PLO8 or FLO8 tournament with more money than we spent to buy into it, and that's always a good day when you're playing poker. You should never really criticize that as a result when you're playing poker. So it's great. I'm very happy with that. It continues my somewhat unbelievably awesome result when I'm streaming tournaments. This is, I believe, my 6th official stream, and I am now in a situation where in 4 of those streams I have cashed the target tournament that I played. 2 of them have been wins. That seems like an unbelievably impossible stat to continue, but hey, I'm liking it so far. So I'm thinking of actually streaming my entire life from start to finish because it seems to be a really good way to get an edge in my life decisions. Frankly. Alrighty, we are finished now, and it's been a fun afternoon, but it's also been a somewhat long afternoon. I've been on for 3.5 hours now, I think. So I'm glad you were around with me here on Anything But Hold'em for the FLO8. Today, the Micro Millions 059. We didn't go quite as deep as we wanted, but we did pull some cash in, $5.52 for a just above a min cash. Hopefully you'll join me next time when who knows what we'll be playing. The only thing that we can say around here is that it's probably going to be Anything But Hold'em. Talk to you soon, everybody. Out.